Good evening to everyone. Uh, this presentation is all about discussing a Supreme Court case law that have come out in the last financial year. And this case is all about deciding whether a particular expenditure could actually be allowed as a deduction or not. So without wasting much time, let's start with the presentation. So kudos to EPSIBA for working on this PPT. These are the legends that have been used in the PPT. So once we upload the presentation, it will be useful for your reference. So this is the schema, the methodology upon which we'll be actually approaching this presentation. So we'll start with the facts of the case for obvious reasons. Then we have the issues that has been raised before the Supreme Court and the orders which have been passed at various appellate forums. Then we have contention of both the parties, both revenue as well as the assessee. Then finally we have the observations of Supreme Court and the eventual decision of the Supreme Court. So the facts of the case. The assessee is the National Cooperative Development Corporation. So henceforth I'll be referring to it as NCDC. So it's a statutory body which is established under National Cooperative Development Corporation Act. And if you see the main purpose for which NCDC has been set is to provide financial and technical supports to cooperative institutions of farmers and allied rural economic activities. So it sets up for planning, promoting, programs relating to production, processing, marketing, storage of various agricultural produce and other allied economic activities. So this is the brief background of NCDC and its whereabouts. But if you see the major function of NCDC is to receive funds from the central government and disperse the same to various cooperative societies, be it a national level cooperative society or a state level cooperative society, and even to the state government, which ultimately finances these cooperative societies. So this is the primary function of NCDC about which it actually operates. And as per this NCDC Act, this cooperative societies, the NCDC, is supposed to maintain a fund. Going forward, we'll be referring to this as NCDC fund. So whatever funds, whatever receipts this NCDC collects will become part of this NCDC fund. Basically, it mainly constitutes funds from central government, and these will be utilized for providing loans, grants, to various cooperative societies, as I said in the previous slide, and also for meeting their day-to-day expenses, paying out their employees, and all the other expenses which are something incidental for carrying out their business. So as every individual does, whenever you have surplus, you make some investments out of it. So similarly, NCDC, after receiving the funds from the central government and various other receipts and dispersing the same dispersing the same as loans and grants to various cooperative societies, whatever surplus it has, it deposits in realizable investments. So realizable investments constitutes fixed deposits. So whatever surplus funds it has, it deposits in a fixed deposit. So this is the brief facts of the case. So now we'll see what was the issue that was actually taken to the Supreme Court. Whether the component of interest income, so when you deposit fixed deposit, you obviously earn interest out of the same. So whether the interest income earned on the funds received from central government and dispersed by way of grant was actually eligible for deduction or not. That was the question. So you deposit the money in fixed deposit, you receive interest, and you use the same interest for providing the loans and grants and advances to the various cooperative societies. So whether these grants was actually allowable as a deduction or not, this was the question that was put forth before the Supreme Court. So we'll see what happened next. So this is the brief about the orders that have been passed at various appellate forums. And if you see here, the AO, ITAT, and the High Court were favoring the revenue, or whereas only the CAT appeals was favoring the assessee. So we will be discussing these stands taken by AO, CAT appeals, and the other appellate forums in detail in the subsequent slides. So we'll move further. So we'll start with the contention of the parties. Why were the revenue said that the grants that were given out of interest income earned from fixed deposit would not be allowed as deduction? Why did they say so? There were three main reasons why the revenue were saying that. Okay. So if you see the NCDC fund, it predominantly constitutes of funds received from central government. And without doubt, the funds received from central government is of capital in nature. So when the interest income is pooled with the NCDC fund, such income loses its character of being revenue in nature because it becomes a part of a fund which is predominantly capital in nature. So that was the stance which was taken by the government. So one side you have the receipt which is capital in nature. So when you give the grants out of this receipt which is capital in nature, such grants is a capital expenditure and not a revenue expenditure. This was one of the stance which was put forth by the revenue. The second point was the grants given to central government, sorry, the state government or various cooperative societies were not in the ordinary course of business and they were just mere application of funds. This was the second stance which was put forth by, second important stance which was put forth by the revenue. And finally, they also said that even if you're going to treat the grants as an expenditure, it will only be regarded as a capital expenditure and it will never be considered as a revenue expenditure, and we will not allow deduction for the same. This was the stance of revenue. But what was the stance of the assessee? Assessees went on to argue that the grants disbursed out of interest income is allowable as a deduction because it's a revenue expenditure. That was a stance which was taken by the assessee. And interest income cannot be considered as capital receipt merely because it got amalgamated into a common pool of funds. So merely because I am crediting my interest receipts to common fund, assessee was arguing that it cannot take the character of capital in nature as it's naturally a revenue receipt. So these were the two predominant stands that were actually taken by the assessee. So now let's see what were the observations of the Supreme Court. So before we actually start with the observations of Supreme Court, we should actually see the basis upon which the case actually went to the Supreme Court. Okay, so the revenue was arguing that the NCDC fund predominantly constitutes of funds received from central government. Okay, so NCDC fund, the receipts from central government is a capital receipt. So when you receive interest from fixed deposits, which is actually a revenue in nature, but once it becomes a part, of NCDC fund, it becomes capital in nature. That was the stance of the revenue. And once you have a capital receipt, when you incur an expenditure, when you give grants from this particular capital receipt, it will obviously be a capital expenditure. This was the stance of the revenue, but Supreme Court went on to refuse this claim. They said like merely because the interest income received has merged with the monies in the common fund, it does not become a capital receipt. Merely because it got merged with a particular fund which is of capital in nature, it does not take away the character of interest received from fixed deposit being revenue in nature. So the interest having been treated as revenue receipt on which taxes are paid must continue to retain the character of revenue receipt. Had it been treated as, if interest received from fixed deposit, had it been treated as capital receipt, at the first place, no tax itself would have been payable. But the assessee has paid tax on that. So, and merely by interest becoming a part of NCDC fund would not partake the character of a capital receipt. Interest receipt will continue to remain revenue receipt. That was the first stance which was put forth by the Supreme Court. So interest will not be a capital receipt. It will continue to remain as a revenue receipt. So once we decide that interest from fixed deposit is going to be classified as revenue receipt, under what head you want to classify it? Obviously, it's not going to be salary, IFHP, or capital gains. So only two options what we have is it's going to be either PGBP, profits or gain from business or profession, or other income. So in order to decide whether a particular income will be regarded as profits or gains from business or profession or not, the business model of the assessee has to be analyzed, and that's what the Supreme Court did. The only business of the appellant is to procure funds from the central government and disburse the same as loans and grants to the cooperative societies. And assessee is only an intermediary between the central government and various cooperative societies through which actually the funding happens. So the main purpose, the assessee was in existence to provide grants and loans. That was the main purpose. And the interest, what it earned out of the fixed deposit, is something just inextricably linked to the business of the applicant. And this is something just inextricable or highly interlinked with that of the appellant's business. Say, for instance, had it been a manufacturing company and if I'm depositing my idle funds in a fixed deposit and if I'm earning interest out of the same, it would be regarded as an IFOS because manufacturing is the primary activity and earning interest is my secondary. It's an independent activity where no much interlink is there. So in such case, you would go on to classify it as IFOS. But in the current case, interest on FD, something is interest on surplus funds is something inextricably linked to the applicant's business. That was the first stance which was put forth by the Supreme Court. So interest received from fixed deposit would be classified under the head PGBB. It would be taxed as business income. And NCDC, the main purpose, as I said in the previous slide, the main purpose of NCDC is to finance the agricultural and other allied economic activities, and its purpose is not for making profit because of innate restrictions from arising from the statute under which it's actually created. So profit making is not a criteria for deciding whether a business whether actually exists or not. So this was another important point that was one of the important observations or key highlights of the Supreme Court. So we will move further. So now we have established, now the Supreme Court has established, in fact, saying that interest is not a capital receipt, it's a revenue receipt. Why? Because mainly because it becomes part of an NCDC fund, it will not become a capital expenditure, it will continue to remain revenue receipt and will be taxed under the head PGBP. But the revenue was arguing, stating that grants are of capital expenditure. So in order to regard a particular expenditure as a capital expenditure, an enduring benefit or an advantage has to be created or an asset has to be created and some long-term benefit has to come out of that expenditure, and only then you classify an expenditure as capital expenditure. But merely by giving grants, NCDC neither accrues any enduring advantage or no asset is getting created as a result of giving grants to various cooperative societies. So what may be capital receipts in the hands of the assessee can still be a revenue expenditure provided it is during the course of business of the assessee. So Supreme Court went on to say that the grants that have been incurred by the NCDC is not a capital expenditure because no long-term benefit accrues to the assessee as a result of it. Sorry. So going further, so now we have again established that grant is not a capital expenditure. So if it's not a capital expenditure, obviously it's going to be a revenue expenditure. And if it's going to be a revenue expenditure, under what head you're going to claim the deduction? Under what section you're going to claim the deduction? That comes the next question. So there isn't any specific section because this case pertains to 1976, assessment year 1976-77. So there wasn't any specific section allowing the deduction of the same. So in case there is no specific deduction, section 37 comes into picture where it states that if an expenditure is wholly and exclusively for the purpose of business, it shall be allowed as a deduction. So the main business of the assessee over here is to provide grants, loans, advances, and it has used its interest income to provide the grant. So this is something, an application of income towards achieving the objective of the assessee's business. So it perfectly falls within the ambit of section 37. So it shall be allowed as a deduction under section 37 because it's wholly and exclusively for the purpose of carrying out its business activities. And one more important observation of the Supreme Court is the source from which you actually incur the expenditure is not relevant for the purpose of claiming deduction under section 37 because what it stipulates is the outlay should be entirely for the purpose of business. And once that's achieved, the source is irrelevant. So whether you actually incur it out of your corpus or whether you actually incur it out of your interest income or any of the sources doesn't really matter. As long as the expenditure is wholly and exclusively for the purpose of business, you can actually claim deduction for the same. So as I said before, this is a case which pertains to assessment year 1976-1977. So but Finance Act 2003 introduced a section 36 subsection 1 clause 12, which stated that a non-capital expenditure incurred by a corporation established under central, state or provincial act shall be allowed as a deduction. So now in the current scenario, we have a specific section which is allowing deduction for the same. So if a cooperative society is using the interest income to give grants, they don't want to claim, they are not required to claim the deduction under section 37 because we have a specific clause we have a specific section which is specifically attributable for claiming deduction of the same, which was introduced via Finance Act 2003. So prior to the amendment, such expense was allowable under Section 37, but currently that expense will get allowed under 36 subsection 1 clause 12. So we have the final decision of the Supreme Court. So the interest income from idle funds and its utilization for the grant is to be taxed as business income. That's what we saw. And profit is never an essential ingredient for the purpose of determining whether a business actually exists or not. And an expenditure incurred for the purpose would be allowable as deduction under Section 37, subsection 1, provided it's exclusively, wholly and exclusively for the purpose of business. And the source of funds from which you actually incur the expenditure is not relevant. And every application of income towards achieving the business objective is a business expenditure, and you can obviously claim deduction for the same. So with this, we actually conclude this webinar. I thank you all for attending this, and I would be more glad if you have any queries. I'd be more happy to answer. So I guess that's it. So thank you all. Thank you so much.